The military first taught me that I have to be able to use this, or I can use these. When it comes to situations, you will never rise to this immaculate plateau of proficiency. No. You will always default to the lowest level of training, not your best level of training, lowest level of training. That for whatever you're doing in life, you need to make positive gains. Make it a positive life. We just can't go through life, just always with a big chip on our shoulders and hate in our hearts. If we're going to raise children, let's raise children responsibly. If we're going to teach children, let's teach them worthwhile skills. If we're going to work with other people, let's treat them as human beings. Getting stronger in the Lord is just like doing anything in an exercise. You're going to get strong. You do the exercise, you're going to get stronger. You read the Bible, you practice the Bible, then you just get stronger.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe to Defenders Live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join our group on Facebook as well. And if you don't want to miss another episode, you can sign up for email notifications at defenders-live.com. Lew Johnson served 21 years in the U.S. Army. His assignments included deployments in support of U.S. policy and directives to Bosnia, Iraq, Turkey, and Africa. He's a veteran of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Bosnia, and the Cold War. He's had the honor of serving in a forward deployed Special Forces anti-terrorist, counter-terrorist unit known as Combatant Commanders in Extremist Force, I'm sorry if I butchered that, which is also known as CIF. As a Special Forces operator, he was deployed in operations other than war throughout Europe, Africa, and associated countries in the Middle East. He was assigned to the U.S. Embassy, Slovenia, as a military liaison officer. He participated in and instructed in close quarters combat tactics and hand-to-hand techniques, as well as developing handgun rifle training for his Special Forces team and company for mission deployment. He helped design and develop the Master Breacher program for a Special Forces anti-terrorist, counter-terrorist unit. As a member of the regular Army, Lew held various positions of increasing responsibility from squad member to platoon sergeant until his acceptance into Special Forces. He was a member of the, I don't know if I'll say this right, Yavapai County Sheriff's Office for over 15 years, with a career spanning detention officer, sergeant, patrol deputy, and field training officer, training unit, and continuing with SWAT and academy instructor duties. He was a member of the Yavapai County SWAT team, perimeter, entry, and sniper, and attended several sniper schools and was a sniper team leader prior to his retirement from the team. He's currently a certified reserve deputy with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Training Unit as an agency instructor and Northern Arizona Regional Training Academy instructor. He has Arizona Post Instructor certifications. He's a National Tactical Officer Association active shooter instructor and a certified NRA, certified Arizona DPS, CCW, Leosha, maybe I don't say it like that, HR 218 instructor and certifier, and Arizona Armed Security Guard instructor. He says he has learned that helping others to be competent in tasks and skills gives them confidence to try to accomplish other things in life. And he says, for as much as we think we know, there is a universe of knowledge that proves that we don't. So with all of that special introduction, let's welcome Lew Johnson onto the show. Hey, Lew. I know. I was trying so hard to get through all the acronyms. I don't know what they all are. I did my best.
You did awesome.
I really don't know all of them. And did I say Yavapai correctly?
It is Yavapai. It's like a chocolate pie, but doesn't taste as good.
And is that in Northern Arizona?
It's in Northern Arizona. We're about an hour and a half north of Phoenix and an hour south of Flagstaff.
So if you guys haven't realized yet, Lew is Nanette Johnson's husband. We had Nanette Johnson on talking about resiliency, I don't know, maybe a month ago in June.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I said, I'm always looking for more good people to have on the show. And Annette says, I really think you would hit it off with Lew. And boy, she was right. I can see what she was talking about now. So can we start at the beginning with you, Lew? I'm sure there's a lot to unpack here. And I don't know you. All I know is the big, long list of resume that you gave me and the short few minutes we were trying to work through camera issues. A lot of this is just curiosity based on what you've given me. Information that you've given me. Can you take us back to your time in the military, and could you describe to me who you were when you went in versus who you were when you came out?
Well, when I went in, I was 19 years old and
wow.
dumber than a box of rocks, and about as useful as a box of broken hammers.
Couldn't have been that bad.
But no, when I graduated from high school, went to college. I spent almost 2 years in college, and most of that I spent hunting because it was in northern Pennsylvania, so we could hunt just about all year round. And I would show up to a few classes, and my professors would say, "Who are you?" And it was one of those things. I thought, you know what, college isn't really where I want to go. Definitely don't want to be an accountant. So I joined the Army, and my grandfather had been from Germany. So when I went to the recruiter, I said, I want to do several things. One, I want to be, like in the infantry. I want to be in the field because I like hunting. I want to jump out of airplanes, and I want to go to Germany. He put a piece of paper at me and said, sign here.
Really?
So I went through basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey, which no longer has a basic training program, and then to Fort Benning. And then from Fort Benning, I went to Germany in early 1976 and came back in 1982.
And what was that like? Were you just thrown in the deep end, or was it pretty easy for you to handle that?
It was pretty easy for me to handle that. It was just being. I was a grunt. Well, I was infantry, and then I was in mortars, and then learned how to drive trucks. And I was company commander's driver for a while because I had a very good handle in the German language that I had learned at home from my grandfather, and was used as an ersatz translator. And then later they tested me out, and I was considered an official translator.
Wow.
Even as a private, and on up through the time I left that unit.
So then when did you decide you wanted to join Special Forces? What was that? Where did that come from, and how did that all come about?
Well, it was kind of like a progression. I had in that first unit, when I was driving for the battalion commander, the XO at the time, he was a major, and he had been in a Special Forces unit in Vietnam, and then later assigned to the 7th Special Forces Group at Fort Bragg. And then to get promoted up through the ranks, he had to leave Special Forces, go to the regular Army, so that he could get promoted on. I'm sorry, I'm Italian, partially. So if my hands are in my pocket or I have to keep that, it's a speech impediment. So and I had a lot of interaction with him. So he's probably the first person who kind of put the little
planted the seed.
Yeah. And then later on down the line, I came back to the United States, was stationed at Fort Lewis, had a quick introduction to the Ranger Battalion there. So I went to an infantry unit at Fort Lewis, and two of the guys in the unit came from the Ranger Battalion. The one guy had been stationed at Fort Devens with 10 Special Forces Group. So being with them for a couple years, my grandfather, when he retired from everything, he had been in the military as a military doctor. Well, he was living in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and he had been on staff at Womack Army Hospital. And I went up to a Christmas right after he had been passed for a while. I went up to see my grandmother and talked to a few people that I had known up there, and they said, "Dude, you got to come over. Got to come over the fence, crawl the fence." I said, "All right."
And what were you thinking? Were you really like, this was always kind of in the back of your mind?
And I said, this is because I had applied to Ranger School when I was in 0 week and got hurt.
Oh.
Since I was stationed at Fort Benning, they just sent me back to my unit to recover. And then while I was up at Bragg, got with some people, and then filled out some paperwork. Went back down to my unit at Fort Benning, and I was an AIT instructor, advanced individual training. I was a mortar instructor, so I was teaching mortars to people, and I got a phone call to go over to the headquarters that we had on Fort Benning proper, and the battalion sergeant major was a little upset, handed me my acceptance packet at Special Forces School, and told me I went kind of outside the boundaries, but it was a done deal. And 4 months later, I was up at Fort Bragg in what we called the Q course. And at that time, it was just 3 phases. Phase 1, which was literally, we're going to beat you to death, try to starve you, and laugh at you the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was great. Loved it.
Some people really do love suffering. I really think that some people get a kick out of it, just to see how far they can push themselves. And that was what I wanted to ask was, What was it about Special Forces that was such a draw for you? And then also, what does it actually take? What kind of person does it actually take to make it through all of that training to survive it?
Dedication to oneself and knowing that you don't know everything, but you're not going to quit. I went through my phase one. I had Rangers in there. I had other guys in there. I did sports in high school. I did some sports in college, but I wasn't considered like a premier athlete or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I went through with Rangers, and don't get me wrong, Rangers are awesome. My son's a Ranger, but it's just more like the movie True Grit. Once you start, you keep on going, and the only time you stop is when it's time to take that dirt nap. So you just keep.
So just no quit.
No quitting.
Pure grit and stubbornness, it sounds like.
And well, from there, I had already been a weapons instructor, mortars. I was at what we called the infantry schoolhouse at Fort Benning. I taught the M60 machine gun, 50 cal machine gun. I was on the test bed for the original squad automatic weapon. Are you familiar with that?
No.
It is. Well, it is an M16 on hyper steroids. It shoots it fires the same caliber of round as an M16, but it's in a belt fed system. The SAW is called the SAW, squad automatic weapon, and it could take a 200 attached drum with 200 belt fed rounds. And it would also take M16 magazines if you needed to. And I was on the test bed for that and then helped teach that. And then I was also on the patrolling committee and a couple other of the infantry committees down there. So when I put my paperwork in, the guy says, dude, he says, because I wanted to go as what we called an 18 Bravo, which is a special forces weapon sergeant. He goes, tell me about an M16. Told him about an M6. Tell me about an M2, a 50 caliber machine gun. Told him about that. Told him about a SAW. Why do you want to be a weapons sergeant? Because that's what I like. He goes, no, you want to be Special Forces engineer sergeant. And I just kind of thought for a second, do we blow things up? He goes, you're right. That's what I want to be.
Wrong word.
Yeah.
You just had the wrong word in there.
So it was an 18 Charlie. So I was an 18 Charlie Special Forces engineer sergeant. And then shortly thereafter, I was cross-trained as a weapons sergeant because I already knew all the major weapons components. And then later on, I became what's called an 18 Foxtrot, which is operations and intelligence, which got me the job with the embassy in Slovenia.
So intelligence, what kind of training do you get for that sort of a job?
Know how to drink coffee.
Come on.
No, you've heard of the term military intelligence?
Yeah.
Total oxymoron, I'm telling you.
Really?
There is no such animal as military intelligence. No, what it is, we were trained how to read battle plans, how to try and determine what the plan was that the enemy would be doing based on the kinetic picture that we were seeing.
Okay.
In terms of what equipment was in the front, what equipment, had they been drawing off the front? Were they building fortifications? Okay. Were they abandoning things?
So you can make better decisions then.
Right.
Okay.
How to set up, surveillance of targets, how to determine which targets were targets of value, which targets weren't of value, how to exploit, targets of value. Instead of going in and blowing up a bridge, why don't we just take major parts of the bridge, make it non-usable so we can still use it for foot traffic, but not for heavy equipment.
So you weren't like necessarily one of the guys on the ground gathering intelligence. You were analyzing the intelligence that was being gathered. Is that true?
No, I was also on the ground doing that.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Sometimes, yes, we would do that in country.
That's interesting. I'm just trying to picture in my head what that would look like.
Well, the best way is there's a movie with the most awesome actor in the world, John Wayne.
John Wayne.
If we were in my office, I could show you a picture of John Wayne. It was called The Green Beret.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sure my husband's seen that movie.
It is a very good depiction of what we still do in special forces arena, because there's a difference between special forces and special operation forces, SOF.
Really? Special
operational forces is a conglomeration or the umbrella of SEALs, Rangers, MARSOC, SF. That is the whole spectrum. And then you have special forces, which is an Army entity.
Okay.
And the Green Berets. Now the SEALs, they have the SEALs, and they are specifically for the Navy.
Yeah.
And MARSOC and the Raiders and the Raider element are specifically for the Marine Corps.
This is a good education for me, Lew. Thank you. There's a lot to this. There really is. If you're not in that world, you guys speak a totally different language. You speak in acronyms most of the time.
That's it. And if you don't know how to put several letters together into a non-functioning word, you're done.
You're done.
Just pack it up, go home.
So you didn't answer my question. Who were you when you left the military versus when you went in? How did that change you?
It gave me a better perspective on life, how to deal with things. I had some, going in, as a private, normally I'm going to say once someone comes into the Army, I don't care what their educational background is. I've dealt with people who've had master's degrees and PhDs, and they come in, and if they didn't go the officer route and they came in as enlisted, if they haven't been running several miles a day and they haven't been learning how to march and they haven't been doing a lot of different things that are just totally military oriented, then they don't know anything. They don't know anything.
Do a lot of them think they do?
A lot of them do think they do as well.
Yeah.
And the military first taught me that I have to be able to use this. Or I can use these. And the best part of getting around any situation is being able to use critical thinking so that you can determine what your priorities are. What is your end objective, which is up here? You think, well, here's my end objective down here. No, your end objective is up here. You have to build the individual fundamental steps to get to that end objective. Critical thinking. And that's what I first started learning in the Army. If I want to go from point A to point B, whether it be on the ground, navigating with a compass and a map, or point A to point B with learning how to be effective with my rifle or my handgun, I had to determine what those critical steps were in between.
Making a roadmap, yeah.
The Army, the Army gave me a very good picture of how to do that, and all the course of actions, how to develop course of actions so that I could turn around and develop those individuals that were under me, mentor them a little bit, and make it through a 21 military career.
Yeah, that's a long time. And then how many years in law enforcement actively?
15 active, and I'm still inactive. Well, I'm still a certified reserve dick, and I still do training.
This is just your life. So it was after the military, but before the law enforcement career that you met Nanette. Is that correct?
I was still in the military.
Oh, you were?
Nanette had gotten accepted to the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, for her master's degree.
Okay.
I call it head techery. You have chief mechanics in cars. Well, you got chief mechanics, head techery, and she was going there for her degree in counseling and psychotherapy. Her apartment was across what we called the quad. There was a common area, like a little park, and her apartment was across from mine. I had a second floor. She had a first floor.
Okay. Yeah, because she talked about the moment that she met you and all of that. It was so funny. I loved reading it in the book. It was just one of my favorite parts. And actually, I'm glad that she recommended that I interview you, because there was always this little piece of me that was like, man, Lew in the book, I really want to meet who Lew is in real life, because I feel like I know you through her book and your guys' experience. Like, what a cool story that is. What an amazing story. It's just, I don't know. It's admirable. It's inspiring, and it's funny and entertaining at the same time. You guys are quite the pair, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Still, but you were getting out of the military soon after, or around that time you met her. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had about a year or so left.
Okay.
We had met, and then I went and did a job in Bosnia for a couple months.
Okay.
And then came back, and this was in late 97, correct? No, 96. And that's when I decided it was, if I was going to make this relationship or the relationship work, I wouldn't be able to do it still in the military. I already managed to completely destroy a marriage with the military. So.
Yeah, I hear that that's a common theme, honestly,
yes.
for guys in military. And then I also hear a common theme that the transition back to civilian life is sometimes very difficult. What was that like for you? Oh,
it's still ongoing.
Yeah?
Oh, yes. It's been since 1997, so it's been close to, it's 28, 29 years, and it's still sometimes a struggle dealing with people in a civilian life with a civilian attitude, or mindset, I should say, a mindset.
Yeah, I understand that. What was it like to go from being in the military to law enforcement? Were there things that were similar and other things that were completely different? Did you have to learn a whole lot of new things, or was it pretty easy?
There were easy parts, and then there were some very difficult parts.
Okay.
The regimentation was good. I was good with regimentation. I was under it. I grew up in an orphanage, graduated from that, and then I went. I had a 2-year break, and then realized I needed supervision. In the military, and was part of being supervised and part of the supervisory staff. So I understood, how a regimental system works. And then in law enforcement, it is not as stringent as the military, but it's still there. I mean, you still have that command hierarchy. You have, a line deputy, then you have a first line supervisor, which might be an FTO, then you have a sergeant, and then you have your lieutenant, your captain, on up that chain of command.
Yeah.
So that I was familiar with. So I didn't have a problem with that transition.
Yeah. Well, good. I wondered about that. Do you have any observations, concerns, or general commentary about what you've seen change in the law enforcement community since you officially retired?
Oh, yes. I've seen it go. And that was part of some of the stuff I had with the transition. From the military, it was like, we call them LGOPs, little groups of paratroopers.
Mm-hmm.
Take these guys and kick them out of an airplane. And their mission is, once they hit the ground, is they go to the sound of thunder and roaring gunfire, and they destroy everything not dressed like them. Well, when you transition to law enforcement, it's a totally different kind.
Right.
Because everybody not dressed like you isn't always the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was, yes, sometimes in a law enforcement, not in a law enforcement career, but with law enforcement, it's more, you spend more time educating people, which is really what we should be doing, is educating people. And I've seen it go that there's certain things we educate on and things that we enforce in terms of law enforcement. And now administrations want us to be more educational in fields we are not equipped in.
Oh.
Equipped to be psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
We're not equipped to be, addressing certain issues with family affairs, domestic violence is a big thing. We should be able to determine in a domestic violence issue where the warring parties are, but we should not have to be required to sit down and start telling them things they should do and things they should take account of, and that shouldn't be part of the job that we should have to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're there not to determine guilt or innocence. We're just there to separate the warring factions, and then determine how much separation needs to be required. I.e., we take someone to jail. Here in Arizona, if there's a domestic violence situation, regardless, people are required to go to jail. Mm. And sometimes it's both parties because when you get both parties out there, they're going to jail. And then certain crimes now, it's like in other states, they do crimes. Someone walks out of a store like Target or Walmart or whatever with a shopping cart full of merchandise, and all they get is, okay, here's a piece of paper, come to court at this time, have a nice day.
Right.
And they keep all the merchandise they just stole and get to go home. All they have to do is, and they don't even report for the court date.
Yeah. And then I've heard, are there parts of the country, I think Colorado was one of these, that are trying to get rid of qualified immunity?
Yes.
That's insane.
And that's why it's hard to keep quality law enforcement people or get law enforcement people, period.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to be severely punished for doing their job, why do the job?
It's kind of a mess in some areas. I know it's better in some and worse in others, but overall, that's got to be just such a difficult job, especially right now.
Now, if you feel that qualified immunity is going to be taken from you, or your administration is placing constraints or new requirements in there, that causes hesitation.
Yeah.
And that hesitation may lead to you being severely injured or worse, because we teach, and have you heard of the OODA loop?
Yeah, we actually talked about it this past weekend in one of our classes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the one I didn't know about was, I don't think anyway, is PACE. Could you explain that one?
PACE. Yeah. And when I tell people in class, I say, we always need to pace ourselves. We look at everything in a planning aspect. PACE is a primary plan, an alternate plan, a contingency plan, and an emergency plan, or a course of action. Primary course of action, secondary, but now it's alternate, contingency, and emergency. All four plans can stand alone as, by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to go straight to the emergency plan, I can for whatever reason.
Yeah,
Or
this sounds just like you apply this to everyday life. Like this isn't necessarily.
one applies this to everyday life. They just don't know they do. It's like,
Well, could you give us an example? Could you give us a specific example so to help clarify what it means?
okay, and I do it a lot with the OODA loop with driving my car. I'm going down my road, 2-lane road, and then it comes into a 5-lane.
Oh.
And it's kind of like a T intersection. I have a 5-lane road that comes from my left at a traffic light. And as we all know, with traffic lights, you have green, which means go. You have yellow, which means go a lot faster. And you have red, which means dump your brakes, make your back end raise up so that the guy behind you has to do evasive action. I mean, we put a lot of skill sets into our driving here in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So driving down the road, you have to plan for what the person to your left is doing. If you're in the right-hand lane, what the person to the left is doing. If the person is in the center turn lane to their left, you have to understand, because a lot of people like to be in the left-hand turn lane and then turn right. It's one of those things. So you're always having plans. If they turn right in front of you, are you going to turn right into to what I call a cutout, so that you avoid that fender bender and insurance rate rise? And so you're not. Sometimes you have to make it up as you go along.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you have these plans, because I'm coming up to the traffic light, okay, everybody's stopping, we're turning green. I don't have anybody that's oncoming deciding to come into my lane.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what happens if there is an accident? Do I have a place to pull off?
Mm-hmm.
Calling 911, making sure I can grab whatever medical gear I have to go out and assist. We have the Good Samaritan law, so we can provide medical assistance without fear of being sued.
Mm-hmm.
Not like New York. No,
we have that in Montana as well.
Yeah. So all these plans, and some of them, they're not complicated. They're not complicated. We can move it into our daily lives. Courses of action, and boom, we'll say, okay, if this would happen, I'm walking down the street, it's during daylight, but I see, a group of people coming at me. What is the first thing I'm going to do? OODA loop. I observe this situation. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to orient myself to it. And during that, I'm going to start picking out combat files or courses of action, start listing them and prioritizing them. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to decide, okay, I'm going to do this action, which may be cross the street, get away from, or I can't cross the street, but I'm going to either get as close to a building, but not get trapped to that building. Okay. And then if it looks like I'm getting trapped, then I'm going to do, boom, this alternate plan. And then, all these little things. And then I'm going to put a plan into action. And if that's not working, I'm going back to observe, orient, decide, act. And that's why it's considered the OODA loop. And I don't know how depth they got into that class for you. It was developed by he was an Army Air Force guy, helping his fighter squadron to defeat the Japanese fighter pilots by looking at how they flew and saying, okay, they're going to do this, I'm going to do this. If they do this, I'm going to do this, and try and template a battle before it happens.
And that for just the everyday Joe Jane civilian, I don't think many realize how valuable that. We call them mental reps, basically. Those mental reps are because what is the saying? If your mind's never been there, your body will never follow or go there. You'll just be shocked. You'll be frozen. You won't even, because you've not considered that could maybe happen to you. And so even though we don't really want to think about things that make us uncomfortable, right? It's imperative that we do think those things through in advance. And even though the scenario might not play out exactly the way that we maybe had planned or thought of it in our head, at least if we go there and we think through the different steps and scenarios, we have a better chance at surviving that. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what we also say is when it comes to situations, you will never rise to this immaculate plateau of proficiency. No, You will always default to the lowest level of training, not your best level of training. Lowest level of training. And that's why I tell people, when you train under harsh conditions, stress inoculation. We have certain drills in our classes that we do, and we pre-stress people just a little bit. When they start doing finite things, they find out that those finite and tactile senses dissipate very quickly under stress. Now you're just on gross reptilian motor skills, right? And that's with handguns, with combatives, with anything that when someone gets under stress, they just start hyperventilating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, slow down your breathing, allow your brain to become oxygenated so that you can make better decisions and life choices.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and another plug as to why training is so important. So important. So it's not enough to just think about it, right? We did talk about mental reps, not enough to just think about it. You have to actually put that time in, that training in. And it's life-saving training, Lew. It's valuable. People that are hesitant to put the money forward, it's just shocking to me sometimes, because if you think about this could potentially save your life or get you at least closer to a skill set, skill level, mindset, all the tools in your toolbox, right? That can make you more prepared to survive something in the future. Why wouldn't you want to sign up for that? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a training junkie and I'm an odd person, but to me, it's a no-brainer. So that's so valuable. You said in some of the notes that you sent me that you stress the importance of training with purpose. I've found as I've gone longer in my journey of training that I can train harder, longer, and with more intention and get so much more out of it if I have context and or a real life scenario playing in my head, in my mind box while I'm doing it. I can run faster. Everything about it when you get first of all, the stress inoculation is helpful, right? So if you can get in that mindset, that mind frame of here's what's actually happening. This is my kid, right? That I'm trying to save. I mean, there's literally nothing a mama bear wouldn't do for their kids, right? And, I've noticed that as I've given more context and purpose to what it is that I'm doing, what the thing is that I'm doing, it no longer feels like as much like, oh, I'm exercising again, I have to run this mile, or, oh, I have to go to the range and I'm going to do this drill. And you just go through the motions of it. It's not like that at all for me anymore. And I think I'm speculating, but I'm pretty sure that I'm getting a lot more out of my training by doing that than just by going through the motions and checking the boxes. So I really like that you mentioned that.
Well, it is. Sometimes I'll go to schools or classes and they say, well, I want you to do this task. It's like, okay, why should I, just clear a weapon like this? Or why am I going to allow someone to get too close to me to where I'm not able to defend myself for a sudden strike or attack?
Right.
Why am I not going to blade myself off, get some type of defensive posture up? We call it a relaxed ready. The closer someone comes, the higher our hands come up. We never want to let our hands go below our navel. We don't want them to block our face, because it seems like right now I don't have a clue what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
But not make it look so intimidating, and learn how to do that.
I wanted to switch gears here for just a little bit, because you said I send every guest that I have on, I send a list of questions, and based on how they answer those questions, how I kind of frame where we go. But you say that one of your most passionate topics is your faith in Jesus Christ and your family. Could you tell the story about, or at least go into it a little bit about whenever you met Nanette? She kind of touched on it in her interview, but I kind of want to hear your perspective, how your faith came about and what that looked like for you.
When I met Nanette, I had been agnostic. I had that stamped on my dog tags. Agnostic, not heathen. But after listening and Nanette told you about the Book of Ruth, and every family needs a Moabite, and I are it. So, but no, when I was in the orphanage, we did have church classes. We had, and every Sunday we were in chapel, we were in church. And then for those that had specific faith, they would allow those students, when they were of the age, they could go to the synagogue, or they could go to the Catholic service, or they could go to the Episcopalian service or Protestant. I shouldn't say that, because I have no clue. But my grandfather being German, I think he had been an Episcopalian, but I'm not positive. But then, have you ever read Bonhoeffer by American Taxes? Well, he deals with a gentleman named Bonhoeffer during World War II, leading up to and during World War II, and the faith, the Christian faith, and how it separated a little bit in Nazi Germany at that time. So I'm not really sure. I just knew that there was a God. I knew there was a higher power. Just couldn't really kind of put it in a box or encapsulate it, or set it there. I mean, knew of the Bible, read the Bible, knew a lot of Bible stories. We had Bible class when I was in middle school, high school, and then graduated. I even took a course in religious studies in college, and did pretty good in it, because I never attended the course, always out hunting. Anyway, but then it was later on in the military, and certain things that we do, you get a better understanding that there is a power higher than us. And sometimes you wonder, dang, it's hard to explain, but you get this. For me, I would get this feeling where it was like, okay, you need to take a knee, or you need to go this way instead of that way. This decision is a very poor decision. Make this decision. And then basically going with affairs of what you feel, gut instinct is what a lot of people call it. And it's like, okay, you know what? No, we're not going down this trail. We're going that trail. That's the harder trail. Let me tell you what, we're going that trail. And then a little bit later, we get the higher ground. We look down and go, oh, that would have been a bad decision.
Yeah.
Because now we can fight with a positive outcome up here. We would have not fought with a positive outcome down there. And it's just listening to those little voices and then realizing later on in life, there had been something guarding not only myself, but us, those of us around us. And I actually had quite a few strong Christians in some of the teams that I had been affiliated with during the military. I was coming to the end of my career, and she was very, very strong in the Lord, very strong in the Lord. And, she told you about that list of 36 things?
That was a lot. Oh, I don't know. I thought it was 28, but I could be wrong.
Well, anything above 20 is beyond my bailiwick there.
Yeah, but you checked almost all the boxes.
Yeah, but again, can't count that high. So, and it was just, leading down and then watching how Nanette operated within the Lord, within the Bible, and then realizing, there are things that I can take a look at. There are things that I can listen to. And there are things that out there, that I should be listening to, and starting to read the Bible and saying, oh, I remember this and I remember this. And yes, and this is, a good parable, and this is a good life lesson. And it's, in the Psalms and Proverbs, even though there's some few Proverbs, Annette doesn't want me to talk to her about. No. It's like women and leaking buckets. But it's like, for other things. And I've had the opportunity to work, and it's like, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, yeah. And, I have Psalm 144, verse 1 here, which is, the Lord is my rock, and he trains my fingers for war, he trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. And then there's Isaiah 6:8. Which the Lord says, here I am, who shall I send? And I said, here I am, send me. And I know God, and we all kind of agree on that. I had a junior, in special forces, I said we have 12 people. You have your commander, which is a captain. Then you have a team tech, who's a warrant officer. You have your team sergeant, who's an E8. You have your operations intelligence sergeant, and then you have 2 weapons guys, 2 engineers, 2 commo guys, and 2 medics, so that you can break into anywhere 2 6-man teams, 3 4-man teams, 4 3-man teams, or 2, and you can break it down like that. But I've had a lot of very, very strong Christian guys on the teams that I had been on. I should say I was not like most. I was on a few, so I kind of what we called homesteaded. My first team was a 5-year team. And then, I spent anywhere from 3 to 4 years on teams, and just really strong Christian guys that, kind of helped mentor me along that line. So when I met Nanette, it's, even though it had agnostic, I was still along those lines. And then, with Nanette, it brought me further into a relationship with the Lord. And then when I got on the sheriff's office, he had been an instructor in my academy class. Then he was my first sergeant. Then he was my lieutenant. Then he was my captain. And then he was our pastor for a couple of years.
Really?
Yes. And I, just for me, it was a subtle shift, just kind of not climbing, it's more like climbing a rope. I don't climb ropes well or fast, but, just making it to the top, just continually getting stronger to get that next lift up to that next knot.
And it's a never ending.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
But that's the fun part about it, because you're always learning. You're always, getting stronger in the Lord is just like doing anything in an exercise. You're going to get strong. You do the exercise, you're going to get stronger. You read the Bible, you practice the Bible, then you just get stronger.
First, you have to show up to do it.
You have to show up to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's the hardest part.
Excuse my eyes. I had cataract surgery not too long ago.
Oh, did you?
Yes. And I just hope that doesn't get cataract surgery. Otherwise, she'll see who I really am. And I'm really
Oh, you're a jokester. I love it. So I didn't ask you before the show if there was anything that was off limits, but I assume since you're a grown man, if you don't want to talk about something, you'll let me know. I'm curious about your not in detail your first marriage, but I'm just curious, what what were some of the factors that caused that to implode? Or was it just that you were gone all the time and you just weren't available?
I was gone all the time. In the first marriage, it was when I was in the military, and it was all about me. All about me. And we had gotten married in 1979, and in my first tour, and then it was always I want to go to this school, I want to go to that school, I want to be stationed here, I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to, and every time, if I went to a school, got a different skill set or a different skill identifier, they would move me somewhere else.
Oh.
So, I mean, in the military, all told, I probably had over 20 military moves.
Wow.
20 different moves. Well, in the one post, we were in Germany, we were stationed in Bavaria, southern Bavaria. Awesome place. Didn't want to leave it. We were trying to throw a military coup. Didn't work. But they had closed that post down, and they had moved us up to another place up near Stuttgart in a little town called Nellingen. Well, we were there for like 2 months, and then they moved us to another place because they closed that down. So in the space of like 6 months, we moved almost 4 times.
Wow.
And
that
so
would be
you're
rough.
dragging your family around and around.
Yeah.
But when I was in the regular army, because in SF, you're either SF or it's them. The regular army or the legs, little nasty critters running around on 2 feet, don't jump out of airplanes. But it wasn't so bad, but I still wanted to go places. But when I finally got into group, it was like, okay, where's the next, mission I can go on? Where's the next fort? Let's go to the next fort. I'd come back from an op and then get my clothes cleaned and get them repacked in the bag.
That becomes slightly addicting, does it not?
Very addicting.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody goes, well, I'm addicted, to this drug or that drug or this drug. I said, if you want to be addicted to a drug, we are going to go to 10,000 feet. I'm going to put a parachute on your back, kick you out that door, and you will never survive that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
You'll always want more.
Do you ever get completely inoculated to that?
To what? To jumping out of an airplane?
Yeah. I've heard guys saying like after like the 18th time they did it or something, it was just like another day at the office. Is that true?
For some people, yes. And that is when they need to do a self-check. That's when you're too overconfident. That is when you're going to skip an emergency procedure. That is when an accident will happen. If you don't, really, once you get your gear on and you are you're getting, it's called JMPI, Jump Master Parachute Inspection. You need to feel a little bit of flutter in your stomach and maybe in your knees, because now you need to start going over emergency procedures. And I had known guys, I was going to do this and do this. It's like, okay, you can get out of, we call them sticks. And you can get out of my line of jumper, because now you're just more overconfident than you should.
Mm-hmm. That can be dangerous in with anything, really.
And it's like, guys, you get in a stack and it's like, okay, we're going to go through this door. We're going to do this. All right, let's go there. Okay, you back that down a little bit.
We had some guys like that in class last weekend, and they were getting not reprimanded, but they were getting reminded, hey, we're going to do learning speed first. We have to do learning speed, because they just wanted to go at it. So eventually they got to, but it's important. It's important to, when you're learning, at least, to go learning speed first. So let's end on one of your other passions that you talked about, and that is family. What is the next chapter for Lew? I assume you said spending time with Annette, having as much fun as possible. What does that look like? And spending time with your grandchildren is what we
call them our grand gifts until they make
gifts. Yeah.
And we call them scallywags. With them, spending time with the grand gifts. All of them. We have 7 in total right now.
7.
3 in Coronado. Well, they live in El Cajon. Their parents. Well, my son is still in the Navy on Coronado. His wife Jackie, she just retired a couple months ago. And door's closed. The dog wants in.
Oh, let him in.
Just a second.
Hi, Winchester.
Off. Come on. Oh, you big goof.
Doesn't want to. Oh, look at you. What kind of a dog? Golden
She is a golden door.
Golden door, that's right.
He is a mix between a golden retriever and a Labrador retriever. We got her from breeders, shameless plug, for Ridley's Reds in Myerstown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool.
And they do service dogs. They breed for service dogs.
Yeah.
And the other shameless plug is for our son Grant for his endeavor. It's called Founding Fathers Collective.
Oh.
He's our Army Ranger. It's
Oh, I
Founding
see.
Fathers Collective, John Hancock Barbershop,
Oh my gosh. Wait a second. I've literally been on an interview with this guy.
Grant Cazada.
Yes, I have. I just realized. Here it is. So tell me about this organization.
Oh, well,
Business.
It's Founding Fathers Collective. There's John Hancock Barbershop. We have 11 chairs. 11 barber chairs. We have 65 tap beer wall in the City Tavern. Then we have Merchant's Coffee Shop. And then we have a speakeasy. We just recently moved our jiu-jitsu dojo over across into another building. We opened up another building, put our jiu-jitsu dojo upstairs. And then underneath we have our physical fitness center.
Wow.
Yoga room.
That sounds like a fun place.
It is fun.
They have a really cool website too, guys. So go check them out for sure. And they're in Prescott, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You interviewed Grant?
Yes, because one of my contacts, he's not just a contact, he's a friend, knows him. And I was looking for someone to do a Defenders Uncensored episode with, which I don't really do those as much anymore, but they are less YouTube friendly. I guess that's the best way I could put it. And we speak a little bit more freely there on that show than we do on this one. And Grant was one of the most well-spoken, put-together business owners I think I've ever met. He was remarkable.
Yep, that's our son.
That's your son?
Well, that's Nanette's son. I'm his stepfather. Yes.
That's Nanette's son?
Nanette's son, yes.
No. This is a small world. I had no idea. Wow. I did not know that connection. Well, you never know, huh?
Yep.
Jeez, that's crazy. Well, is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with that maybe I didn't cover or?
Well, just that for whatever you're doing in life, you need to make positive gains. Make it a positive life, and for whatever you're doing, do reinforcement. It's like, if we're going to raise children, let's raise children responsibly. Mm-hmm. If we're going to teach children, let's teach them worthwhile skills. If we're going to work with other people, let's treat them as human beings. It's, there is a saying, and it is true. It's what goes around comes around. For every bit of nicety that we give out, we will receive nicety in return. And that's the big thing. I mean, we just can't go through life, just always with a big chip on our shoulders and hate in our hearts. Mm-hmm. That is more self-destroying than anything else.
Yeah. And I think people think that's a protective mechanism, and I don't really think it does anybody any good in the long run. And that's the easier path, honestly. I mean, that's the survival mode, and who wants to live in survival mode their whole life, right?
And it'll wear you out.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's self-destructive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to break through that. Well, I did not expect all of that in that conversation, Lew, but I certainly appreciate your time, your heart. It's an honor to spend time with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just really surprised and honored that you thought there was anything worthwhile I had to say.
Are you kidding me?
Well, it's like I said earlier, I listened to the individuals you had on before, and you had this really awesome lady. I think she's in a wheelchair. She was really, really awesome.
She was pretty awesome. She's a hard act to follow, I will say.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. She really touched my heart in a big, big way. So I'm very blessed that she came into my life, and I'm blessed that you're in my life now too. So thank you.
Thank you. Same here.